If any player is ever demonstrating signs of gross motor instability, he's not allowed to play. Now, in this particular case, Tua Tagovailoa was taken to the locker room. He was examined by the Dolphins doctor and by an unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant that was appointed by the NFL and the NFL Players Association, jointly agreed to. Those two individuals allowed Tua to go back into the game on Sunday. But, again, according to the concussion protocols, if you are demonstrating those gross motor instability skills at that moment, you should not be allowed to re-enter the game. Now, the protocols also apply to brain, neck, and spine injuries. So the Dolphins have been adamant that he didn't suffer a concussion and that it was a back injury. Well, if we're going to use that then you could say that the spine is a part of the back, and under the concussion protocols, once again, he should not have been allowed to re-enter the game on Sunday. He was listed all week long as questionable. I've spoken to teams that have called me since this injury occurred that said that their training staffs would not have allowed Tua to play on a short week last night in the circumstances that he experienced last week. Now, he did play, and every team has a different medical staff and different standards. But again, I come back to gross motor instability. It's the phrase that's in the protocols. It's the phrase that people aren't using. People have said he has a concussion. The Dolphins said he didn't have a concussion. We don't know whether he did or he didn't. What we do know is that when he walked off that field on Sunday, something did not look right. Something was wrong. And Tua was allowed to re-enter the game after being cleared by the doctors, leading up to the circumstances last night that left everybody with a deep, disturbed feeling about how the system had failed.
Schefter, there is probably no one in the world who talks to more people every single day involved in the National Football League than you do. Can you share what sorts of things you were hearing from people you talked to last night after this took place?
There were a wide range of emotions, but a lot of people were deeply bothered and deeply upset about the way that this all transpired. Again, the NFLPA had initiated a review on Sunday. That probably was going to take a couple of weeks to complete. In fact, interviews were scheduled to begin today, and they didn't, or maybe they will later on. So everybody was going to try to get to the bottom of the situation and what occurred here and what didn't occur. But there was a short week in the interim, and I think everybody who watched it, whether you were a part of the National Football League or not a part of the National Football League, could not have felt good about what they saw about a player demonstrating gross motor instability on Sunday, playing again 5 days later, and suffering the injury that he did last night where he had to be stretchered off the field and to a local hospital. It was very upsetting. It was very disturbing. Fortunately, he sounds like he's doing better this morning, well enough to be able to go back to Miami with his team, and we'll see where the situation and the investigation goes from here.
All right, again, we will hear from the coach a little later this afternoon. Schefter, I'd love you to stay with us here as I bring it to the group here. And as you would imagine, a lot of the emotion that Schefter is talking about has been shared here, particularly by our former players this morning. And Ninko, I would turn to you. There's something, the first thing you said to me when I saw you this morning at 6 o'clock is something that I think the entire audience should hear.
Yeah, 54-year-old Tua look at 24-year-old Tua and say, why'd you go play? Why'd you play Thursday? Like you didn't. And that's the problem. That's the problem that we have in the NFL is, number one, I'm sick that this issue even came up because we know now in 2022 that things had to change. Things had to change. I have teammates that aren't here anymore because they had brain damage. They had CT. And, you know, I think back to when I was younger, and I think everyone, even if you didn't play football, you could think back to when you're a younger person, you are like, man, why would I put myself in that position? And, you know, the NFL, the Dolphins, the doctors, trainers, anyone that was included in this decision, they failed the player because it's up to them to make sure that the player is protected from the athlete. And the athlete's mindset, the player's mindset is, I'm okay. I can play through it. Don't take me off the field. I don't want to let this guy down. I don't want to let my teammates down. I don't want to let people down. I have a lot of people that are counting on me to be great. So I don't want to come off the field. And a concussion, you don't know what happened. You don't know that you have a concussion. That's why you see a boxer, an MMA fighter, when they get knocked out, they stand up and the ref goes, yo, you were knocked. They don't realize it. So a football player, it's the same thing. A football player could be running down the field, you get caught, you get up, you look around, you don't know what happened. That's why it's up to everyone else to use common sense. Common sense. This is a common sense thing. You can watch that play Sunday against Buffalo and see Tua hit the ground. I instantly said he got a concussion. He's out. He's out. Because you don't sit up, you don't shake your head to get the cobwebs out, you don't stand up, do it again, and then tumble if you have a back injury. Doesn't happen that way.
Well, the doctors and the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant in the locker room, they listened to Tua, and they allowed him, based on his answers, to go back in the game. Guess what? Players and coaches on the sidelines have tablets. Maybe they should have a tablet in the locker room at halftime. And if the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant and the doctor watched the replays of that play on Sunday on the tablets that are prevalent throughout the stadium, they could not in good conscience, based on the rules themselves, allow Tua to go back into the game. There already was going to be an intense investigation that occurred over this particular event and scenario. And the events of last night are only going to ratchet it up and make sure that there are answers to a lot of hard questions that, based on Sunday's events, don't look like they were answered adequately.